Hey guys, Jim here with another video for you. This is Ranking the Filmography, the Planet of the Ape franchise. But before we begin, at the end of this video, if you like what you see, please give me a thumbs up, a possible subscribe, but most importantly, let me know how you feel about these films, how you feel about my picks and my rankings, and how you would rank these films. Now, before we begin, I just want to stress, these rankings are based strictly on my own personal preference. It has nothing to do with quality of film. And I'm sure my rankings will be quite a bit different than yours. But I do want to state that I absolutely love this franchise. The first film I ever remember seeing theatrically was Battle for the Planet of the Apes in 1973 when I was 6 years old. I don't recall seeing the movie as much as actually going to see it. But I became an immediate fan at that point, and I've seen every one of these films numerous times, with the exception of one, and that'll be the first one on the list. But again, I want to stress, regardless of how these films are ranked, to a certain degree, I love every one of them, with the exception of the first one. And let's just go ahead and get it out of the way right now. The first one on the list, at number 9, is Planet of the Apes, from 2001, directed by Tim Burton, and starring Mark Wahlberg, Tim Roth, Helena Bonham Carter, Paul Giamatti, and Michael Clark Duncan. I saw this movie theatrically when it came out. I was a huge fan, of course, because, again, like I said, I grew up with the original films, and I was very excited to see this film. There are things about this film that I really like. I think the costume design is great. I think some of the performances are very good. However, that ending destroyed this movie for me. Now, to be fair, I saw this movie theatrically, and then I saw it when it came out originally on video and haven't seen it since. I just got this today via eBay so I can complete the series, and I will watch this again to give it another shot. But as it is right now, this is definitely the weakest of all the 9 films that I own. By the way, there's 10 films in this franchise, but the newest one, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, is currently playing theatrically. So we're going by a ranking of 9. So at number 9, Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. Now, for the rest of these movies, I love them all, okay? Love them all. Number 8, Beneath the Planet of the Apes. This was the second installment in the original series from 1970, and this was directed by Ted Post, and it stars James Franciscus, Kim Hunter, Maurice Evans, and a special appearance from Charlton Heston. As I said, this was the second film, the follow-up to the original, and this movie's weird. It's just weird. But it is good. Again, I like all these films, but out of the original 5, this one has always been my least favorite. And then we go to the aforementioned Battle for the Planet of the Apes. This was the fifth and final installment in the original series. This was released, as I said, in 1973. And it was directed by J. Lee Thompson and stars Roddy McDowall and Claude Akins. This movie gets a lot of shit out of the original series. And again, maybe it's just nostalgia because this was my introduction to the series, but I will always love this film. And this movie definitely carries over into the new films with the whole ape does not kill ape, because that is a huge plot point in this movie. As a matter of fact, there's parts from the new trilogy that I think are directly lifted from this film. But again, I love this movie. Okay, next, we have the third installment in the original series, Escape from the Planet of the Apes. This is from 1971, and it was directed by Don Taylor and stars Roddy McDowall, Kim Hunter, and Ricardo Montalban. This is the one that goes back to modern times, and this movie actually plays like a satirical dark comedy for about 3/4 of the film before it takes a very dark turn towards the end. This movie's a lot of fun. It is. It's just a lot of fun. But again, the ending is pretty damn dark. But again, I love it. Love all these movies. Okay, top 5. Number 5, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. This was the 4th installment in the original series. This is from 1972, and it's directed by J. Lee Thompson and starring Roddy McDowall, Don Murray, and Ricardo Montalban. This is actually the movie where the apes take over, and very similar towards the end of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, with some other twists, obviously. But again, out of all the original films, this one's the most brutal. And on this particular Blu-ray, there is 2 versions of the film, the theatrical and the uncut version. And the uncut version is brutal for a Planet of the Apes film. Really like this movie. It's gritty as hell. I really like Conquest. Top 4. Number 4, War for the Planet of the Apes. This was the concluding chapter of the newest trilogy. Came out in 2017. And it's directed by Matt Reeves and starring Woody Harrelson and Andy Serkis as Caesar and Steve Zahn as Bad Ape. Great movie. Excellent movie. Very emotional ending. Just fantastic. The whole trilogy is just top-notch from beginning to end. That's why War of the Planet of the Apes is number 4, because again, these 4 movies, starting with this one and the next 3, all of them are just excellent films, and they're very hard to distinguish one from another. But War of the Planet of the Apes was a hell of a way to end that chapter of the Ape Saga. Okay, this one might shock some people. Number 3, the one that started it all, Planet of the Apes. From 1968. Directed by Franklin J. Schaffner and starring Charlton Heston, Roddy McDowall, Kim Hunter, and Maurice Evans. Classic film. And again, this movie will probably be number 1 in most people's rankings, and rightfully so, because again, this is one of those classic science fiction films that holds up 50 odd years later, and can't say enough about Planet of the Apes. It's just an awesome movie. Number 2, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. This is from 2011. This was the first chapter in the newer trilogy, the Caesar trilogy, I should call it. This one's directed by Rupert Wyatt, and it stars Andy Serkis, James Franco, and John Lithgow. I just covered this one on the Years of Film of 2011, and again, I cannot stress how pleasantly surprised I was by this film. After the Tim Burton movie, I had very low expectations to see this movie. Had to be talked into seeing it originally, and my God, I'm so glad I did, because this movie's fantastic. It was a fantastic way to start this trilogy. And again, it just came out of nowhere. When I heard that this movie was even in production, that they were rebooting Planet of the Apes starring James Franco, of all people, I thought it was going to be the worst piece of shit ever. I've never been so happy to be so wrong. Rise of the Planet of the Apes is an incredible film. But number 1 to me is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. The 2nd chapter in the Caesar trilogy. Directed by Matt Reeves and starring Andy Serkis, Jason Clarke, and Gary Oldman. This movie is incredible. It is so goddamn good. There's not a single flaw in this movie, in my opinion. It is just the perfect Planet of the Apes movie. It keeps the story going that started in Rise and, of course, leads into War. But this movie just alone, as a standalone story, is just fantastic. The whole power struggle between Caesar and Koba is just Shakespearean. It's just so good. So that's why Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is number 1 in my list. And again, I absolutely love just about every one of these films. But to recap, number 1 is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Number 2 is Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Number 3 is Planet of the Apes from 1968. Number 4 is War of the Planet of the Apes. Number 5 is Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. Number 6 is Escape from the Planet of the Apes. Number 7 is Battle for the Planet of the Apes. Number 8 is Beneath the Planet of the Apes. And number 10 is the Tim Burton 2001 version of Planet of the Apes. When Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes comes out on Blu-ray, of course I will be buying it. I will be checking it out. I will be seeing it theatrically, I'm sure, before then. And if I do, I'll do a little review. But when that movie comes out, I may or may not do another ranking and include that film. But until then, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider giving me a thumbs up, a possible subscribe, but most important, please leave those comments. I cannot wait to hear from you. So until the next time, guys, I hope everyone's doing well, and we'll see you then.